Hello and welcome to Money Matters. I am Folashade Ogrinde. The National Assembly has passed Nigeria's budget for the 2021 fiscal year. The budget was increased from 13.08 trillion naira presented by President Muhammadu Buhari in October to 13.588 trillion naira. This shows an increase of about 505 billion naira. This next report has the details. Honorable members of Nigeria's House of Assembly and House of Representatives held a joint plenary session, the last for the year, to pass the 2021 appropriation bill into law. In October this year, President Muhammadu Buhari presented to a joint session of the Red and Green Chambers a proposed budget of 13.08 trillion naira. The National Assembly has, however, approved the budget with an increase of 505 billion, bringing the total budget figure to 13.588 trillion naira. The passage was a sequel to the presentation of a report by the chairman of the Senate Committee on Appropriation, Veral Jibrin. Jibrin said the increase was due to under-projection of revenue by the executive and impact of COVID-19 on the economy.
That the impact of COVID-19 pandemic has negatively affected virtually every aspect of life. Businesses, individuals and government, especially revenue accruals for the government. B, there is a remarkable increase in Nigeria's oil price, which is hovering between $47 and $50 per barrel in the international market. This is above the benchmark price of $40 per barrel approved by the National Assembly. C, the discovery of under-projection of the total revenue to the tune of 100 billion. D, the need to enhance the structure of the budget to allow for the reflation of the economy in order to accelerate the process of taking out the economy from its current state of recession.
Meanwhile, the Senate passed the budget with a breakdown as follows. Statutory transfer 496.5 billion naira, debt service 3.3 trillion naira, recurrent expenditure 5.6 trillion naira, capital expenditure 4.1 trillion naira, and fiscal deficit was pegged at 5.1 trillion naira. The legislatures maintained the 2021-2023 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper (FSP). Nigeria's daily oil production rate was pegged at 1.86 million barrels per day and oil benchmark price to $40 per barrel, as proposed by the executive. Exchange rate was pegged at 379 naira to a dollar, while GDP growth rate of 3.00% was retained as proposed. Jibrin further explained that in view of the increasing global oil prices beyond the benchmark of $40, the executive may wish to submit a supplementary appropriation bill whenever it deems fit, in order to fund critical areas that would help bring the nation out of its current state of recession.
In view of the increasing global oil prices, beyond the benchmark of $40, the executive may wish to submit a supplementary appropriation bill whenever it deems fit, in order to further fund critical areas that will help to accelerate the movement of our economy out of its current state of recession.
In the 2021 key sectoral budgetary allocation, the Ministry of Defense received the lion's share in the tune of 838.859 billion naira. Office of the National Security Advisor received 134.095 trillion naira. Ministry of Interior received 227.015 billion naira. Ministry of Health received 380.208 billion naira. The Ministry of Education received 545.237 billion naira, and the Ministry of Power received 6.069 billion naira. While Senate President Hamid Lawan has urged Nigerians to be patient with the government, Nigeria's rising debt profile, hike in inflation rate, new strain of COVID-19 and its impact on both local and global economies may predict tougher days for Nigerians. And joining me to discuss Nigeria's 2021 budget is MD and CEO of Kairos Capital Limited, Sam Chidoka, who joins me via Skype from Lagos. Thank you for honoring our invitation and glad to have you on the program.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, now let's begin with the 2021 budget, which has a deficit of about 5.1 trillion naira. That's approximately 3.5% of the GDP. Now, this is above the threshold set by the Fiscal Responsibility Act due to the economic challenges attributable to COVID-19. Now, since this deficit is expected to be financed by new borrowings, privatization proceeds, and drawdown on loans secured for specific projects, do you think this will create an imbalance on the economy?
Well, so it depends on the way you look at it. We are faced with a recession. The recession that we're in is made worse by COVID and the lockdowns that we experienced between sometime in March 2020 all the way to about August 2020. And right now, you're also having some form of partial lockdown, and all of this has attendant effect on the economy. So when you are faced with such a challenge, you have to find ways of coming out of a recession. As economists will tell you, what you want to do with a recession is to do a quick turnaround and a V-shaped type of rebound instead of a U-shaped type of rebound, right? So you will find different countries finding different ways of coming out of the situation, financial situation they find themselves in. And Nigeria is not any different. So I would say we should focus on coming out of recession and not so much about how well we adapt to the Fiscal Responsibility Act at this time, because the attendant effect of the recession on our economy will be worse than breaking that ceiling.
Now, in the 2021 budget, debt service profile is pegged at 3.3 trillion naira, which takes us back to the issue of Nigeria's rising debts, which at June 2020 stood at 31.01 trillion naira. Now, of course, we've not even added the recent World Bank loan that was approved to Nigeria. Now, what do you make of this?
I think that we're borrowing quite a bit. And we need to go back to some form of responsibility in terms of borrowing. I know that people will quickly tell you that debt to GDP figures is still good for us, but what you need to be looking at is debt to revenue. Sometime earlier on in the year, we were at Q1 this year, we were at almost 99% revenue in terms of revenue debt service. We were at 99% revenue. So for every 1 naira we made, we're spending about 99 kobo servicing debt. And that's not sustainable. I think that what is more important is for us to be fiscally disciplined. On the monetary side, we see that the CBN is doing a lot to steer the economy in the right direction, making policies, but we don't see enough on the fiscal side. So if you look, for instance, in terms of budgetary allocations and expenses, it's just the same thing. We're in a recession, and we're still having a party. I haven't seen the necessary cuts that you would expect in a season like this, when there should be budgetary cuts, when there should be reduction in overheads to ensure that money is spent more on the capital side so that we can reflate the economy. So on the fiscal side, I do not see much traction in terms of the way we're running the economy.
Now, recall that this year, the 2020 budget had to be reviewed due to COVID-19 effects. Now, do you see this reoccurring with the emergence of a new strain of COVID-19 despite COVID-19 vaccines?
I don't really see it emerging. You remember that what happened with 2020 was because of the benchmark. So you had to review the budget when oil price went even below $30 at some point and was hovering around $33 and $35 for most of the year. So for 2021, we have a budget that is benchmarked at $40. Now that's prudent, because if you look in the past few months, the oil price has hovered between $40 and $45. So I do not see a major shock to it. The only thing that I worry about is our volume of per day production that we've used for the budget assumption. At 1.8 million barrels per day, including condensates, I think that that's a bit optimistic. We might have tried to reduce that a bit so that we're more prudent on that side. But in terms of clear budget benchmark for oil, I do not see a revision for that. We hope that we do not see oil go down much as it did in 2020. I think that the worst is over. with vaccines already in the market, we think that what will happen is that demand for oil will increase and Nigeria will be better for it.
Now, you made a very salient point in terms of cutting down of the budgets and some of our expenses and our expenditure in the economy. And you said with this 2021 budget, you really didn't notice that. But some would also argue that salaries paid to Nigerians at the federal, state, and local levels actually push out money and, kind of stimulate the economy. Where do you stand on this matter?
So for me, it's not about salaries. So when it comes to salaries, you have no option
Mr.
but to pay
Chidoka, if you
salaries.
heard me, I asked earlier that what's your reaction to some arguments by some economists that, the decision of the National Assembly not to cut down on recurrent expenditure would, kind of stimulate the economy in terms of payment of salaries and execution of projects.
Okay, I heard you. Now, my take is that it's not necessarily the recurrent expenditure or salaries that will help to stimulate the economy. What you need to stimulate the economy on a greater scale is your capital expenditure. So I'll give you an example. If you fix a road, you're going to get a contractor. That contractor will employ more people, creating employment. Then there is the value chain of the whole construction. Those people who are going to work at the construction site will buy food from the roadside seller. The roadside seller will buy cooking materials from those who manufacture utensils and will buy foodstuff from the market. The market people will buy from the farm. So you can see that there is movement in terms of growth in GDP. I agree that you need to pay salaries, and I don't have any problem with salaries. What I have a challenge with is other recurrent overheads. So issues like travel allowances, issues like how much it costs to run offices, issues that, so you find that we're in a recession. I do not expect that if you spent 100 naira to run a particular office in 2019, then in 2021, you also expect to do the same thing when we're in a recession. We need to begin to cut some of this, what I call lifestyle financing that we're doing. And, we ask the question, what does it cost to run a typical government office? What does it cost to run a minister? What does it cost to run a governor? What does it cost to run the president, the vice president, and all the heads of government parastatals? What does it cost to run their office? What is their travel allowance? Have we cut down on those things? I haven't seen it.
But I'd like to interject at this moment. What you're saying is something that has been advocated for a very long time, and with the fact that Nigeria is currently in a recession, most people actually expected this, but just like we've observed, that did not come to play. But definitely, we'll see how it turns out in 2021 because we are only citizens. We can only, air our opinions on these issues, but it's left for the government to actually implement these matters. But it's this much we can take, Mr. Sam Chidoka, but thank you very much for your contributions.
Thank you for having me.
That was Sam Chidoka, MD, CEO of Kairos Capital Limited, giving us an analysis of the 2021 budget. We'll take a break here, and when we return, we'll take a look at revamping Nigeria's economy amid financial downturns. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Anyone who lives in Nigeria must have experienced in one form or the other the harsh reality of the country's dire economic situation, with Nigeria's rising debt profile, steady inflation hike, fall in the value of the naira, and ripple effects of COVID-19 on key sectors of the economy. It is apparent that urgent action needs to be taken to forestall an economic collapse. In the wake of this, concerned economic organizations as well as financial and economic experts have expressed concern over the state of the Nigerian economy and have called for strategic measures to revamp Nigeria's failing fortunes. The Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, NECA, has called on the Nigerian government to urgently take measures that would salvage the economy and save it from total collapse. Now joining me to share the best ways Nigerian government can revive the economy is the Chief Economist, Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, NECA, Olushola Ayodele, who joins me via Skype from Lagos. Thank you for joining me on Money Matters.
Good afternoon.
Now let's begin with Nigeria's rising debt profile. According to the Debt Management Office, DMO, Nigeria's total debt stock for foreign and domestic as at June 2020 stood at 31.01 trillion naira. This excludes the World Bank loan of $1.5 billion recently granted in December. Now, what this automatically means for Nigeria is a situation where a good percentage of the country's revenue goes into debt servicing. Now, how do you think Nigeria can ease out of this?
Okay, thanks for having me this afternoon. Like you rightly mentioned, the issue of the rising debt accumulation of the country as it is, we believe that yes, it's good. I mean, in every economy for you to have debt in getting infrastructural deficiency being uplifted. But with the current trend that the Nigeria is going in accumulating debt, we believe that it is, I mean, perhaps we might get to a state wherein we be likened to the likes of the Greece, I mean, in the EU, in the Europe, wherein we'll be unable to even meet our debt obligation. Because if you look at in the past 5 years, we the quantum of revenue that we gather and vis-a-vis what we use in servicing debt, it's getting out of hand. I mean, I think in the last 2020 budget, accumulation of, I mean, we have like 35.6 of that revenue that will be used to service debt. Looking back to 2019 vis-a-vis the past 5 years, I think 2017 we have about 36.2, 2018 around 30% of it of our budgets was used in servicing debt. So this and going forward, accumulating such a huge amount of money in servicing debt, which ordinarily is supposed to be in, I mean, stimulating the economy, doing infrastructure, improving your infrastructure. We believe that this could, I mean, amount to a really critical state for the economy. However, for the economy to jump out of this, we, you know, because the quantum of what we use in servicing debts or getting this debt is more for recurrent salaries, payment of salaries, and all the rest. So why not channel that? I mean, there is no economy that will grow using your borrowing to service recurrent expenditure. I think we need to depart from this trend.
Now, inconsistent policy has been identified as one of the major setbacks of the Nigerian economy. A classical example is the border closure and diaspora remittances policy. Now, what's the long and short-term impact of these shaky policies on the Nigerian economy?
I like the border closure that you just mentioned. I think when the border was closed some months back, the Nigerian Employers Consultative Association clamored for a review of that policy, because we believe that economies, you don't prosper in isolation. Wherein Nigeria economy, it's even the one that fits on the other economy in the West Africa. We have companies that have their businesses in most of the West African countries. So shutting down such part of the economy has a grave impact on your economy as well as the other economies in the West Africa. That's one. Also, we mentioned the issue of inconsistency, policy somersaults of government. Yes, government comes up at times with policies that could, like the CBN and other, and the Ministry of Finance through customs or there, but comes up with policies that we believe, yes, it can help in stimulating the economy. But before the expiration of such policy, you find out that government has cut short such policy or try to even, re-strategize in it. But whereas investors will have invested based on such a policy, and that's why we find out that some investors, both local and even foreign investors, are always scared of Nigerian economic policies because you can't really plan with it, and this could not help any economy.
Now, moving away from shaky policies, some have questioned the government's commitment to diversify the economy, though we've seen a rollout of agricultural programs. Now, its effects have not been felt. Now, if diversification is pertinent to the future of Nigeria, how long do we have to effect these changes?
Okay, to us, I believe that Nigeria economy, as it was currently, is diversified enough. We have, we can generate funds from or revenue from every sector of the economy. But nevertheless, what we are clamoring for is our source of revenue. The source of revenue of Nigerian economy currently is it's more of on the oil, our export from, export from oil make over 50% of our revenue. What we are clamoring for is that let's have other sources for revenue because we believe that the revenue from oil is not predictable in the sense that once there is a shock in the international global oil prices, you have, the effect of it is felt much on such an economy. Therefore, we have natural resources, the coal that we can also start doing exploration of it. At the end of the day, we find out that even other non-oil sector of the economy as well can also be stimulated, can also serve more of for our revenue generation. So it shouldn't be only, basing our revenue strategy on oil alone. Let's diversify the sources of our revenue. I think with that, even if there is a challenge in the world economy, Russia with US or thereabout, that necessitates the crisis in the oil prices, this will not affect our revenue or the budgets in running the economy as it's a whole.
Now, you made mention of Greece, which ran into economic trouble some years ago, especially with regards to its debt profile and, the imbalance in its revenue. Now, some experts have said that soon Nigeria may just go that way if strategic, effort is not made by the Nigerian government to ensure that we do not get into an economic collapse. Now, you've made mention of diversification of the Nigerian economy, but the issue here for Nigeria, according to you, is, multiplying Nigeria's revenue. We've, of course, heard the Nigerian government saying so many things about the gas industry, minerals, and agriculture especially. But how long do we have as an entity, as a state, to multiply our sources of revenue to ensure that we do not become a classical example of a country like Greece?
There is a saying that Rome is not built in a day. And the earlier we start this process, the better for the economy in whole. We need to start making that direct policy to ensure the sustainability of this economy. 2020 is still, we can start now. We can see what's happening in the agricultural sector, and which can also boost our revenue wise. Yes, we are trying to make the local the food security in the country enough for us. We can also try looking in that direction as well, trying to process these agricultural products so that we can also start earning foreign earnings from the agricultural sector. So the time is now. We can start now. It's never too late for us to start, having a policy rejuvenation in our agricultural, in our industrial, or even in our trade policy areas that can help us to get to that our promised land. To us, we believe that the time is now for this, current administration to nip in the bud, right policies for this economy to start moving. Yes, 2020 it's rounding up, but we can start something as soon as possible.
Now let's take a look at one other major issue that some financial experts have highlighted. That is Nigeria's very expensive system of government. We understand that we operate a federal system of government and we operate a bicameral legislature, which of course creates multiplicity in functions. But what do you think? Do you think cutting down expenses would be the right action to take at this time? Because of course a lot of people have called for that, but a good observer of the Nigerian government to see that it would seem that that would not come to play anytime soon. What is your reaction on this matter?
For us, we believe that governments, both at the federal, state, and local governments, could try to, like one of the core card, the agitation of this administration when they are just coming in is they want to stem corruption, promote good governance. So we believe that yes, at every ministry, department, at the agencies of governments, even the state, the federal, and the local government, if they could cut down the expenses. I recall, I think that 2 days ago at the Senate, wherein doing the review of the budget or defending the budget, wherein we find out that same type of items keep occurring year in, year out in our budget preparation. So those are part of the ways that we believe that, yes, we need to cut down the returns of aides and special advisors of government or parastatals should be reviewed. That's by the way. You mentioned the area of the kind of governance, government that we are running in this part of the world. Yes, one way of cutting it as well is why can't we review the constitution that will make room for just having collapsed the National Assembly to one. We are trying to review, reduce the cost of governance. At the end of it, we can channel those resources for better use in our infrastructural deficiency.
Well, that's much we can take, Mr. Olushola Ayodele. Thank you very much for coming on the program, and thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
And it's this much we can take. Thank you very much for being a part of the program. I am Folashade Ogrinde. Bye for now.